This episode of Beyond the Closing, we talk with Matt Engler from Allied Inspection Services. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First United Land Transfer. Enjoy the conversation. So, Matt, so glad that you're here, man. Thank you so much. And it's funny because you just walked in and, you brought this pretty awesome flyer talking about something that I find is so interesting and not many people are actually doing, right?
Absolutely.
So, many years back when I got out of the service, I would always carry a little kit in the back of my SUV that I had, and I had food, I had water, I had toilet paper, and
clutch.
Right? Yeah. So you never knew where you were going to get stuck.
Yep.
And me, I was very adventurous back in my younger years. But here you have something that says, do yourself and your family a favor and review and implement these travel preparations before you merge onto the interstate. So this is great. So what inspired you to do this?
Well, obviously, it takes something significant to put things into motion, and I think witnessing the I guess you would call them tragedies with the weather-related accidents on our local interstates, whether it was 309 or 33, or I think the one that really resonated the most was the one on 78 a couple of years ago. Yeah,
I lived in Hamburg back then.
Yes. So it's just amazing that this type of stuff still happens where people are stranded for that long of a period of time. And when it comes to business and serving the community, we all really want to operate a good business, but at the same time provide a lot of value.
Indeed.
So the wheels are constantly churning as to how do we provide a little bit more value? How do we kind of instill some allow people to think and just remind them of things and stimulate some thought and provide value in a way that helps protect their family or gives them some food for thought.
Indeed, because this is very selfless. This has nothing to do with home inspections. This has a lot to do with protecting your family and yourself.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. So it's like, how do we provide value and how do we relate it with home inspection? And how this all comes together is being winter, a lot of people are already it's on the radar that they're looking to sell their house. They're probably already 99% convinced they're going to be selling, and they're probably advised to wait until the market gets hotter in the springtime, or warmer, I guess, in the spring, or the market starts to defrost, March, April. Right. This for sale signs, I always kind of joke, as the ground thaws, the for sale signs start plopping right in place. But what happens then with all of this, heightened activity in the springtime, on the flip side, the home inspections are occurring, and we're seeing a lot of little things that pop up during the course of the inspection.
Right.
And although
what?
Little rot that's developing,
okay.
Moisture issues in basements, a little bit of mold growth, some spider infestations. And it's funny because a lot of this stuff is related to roof water.
Okay. Didn't know that. Tell me more.
I always joke with people because we make a point of emphasizing how critical it is to get roof water away from a foundation.
Right.
And studies have actually concluded that 90% of the water that would get into a basement or crawl space is water that originally landed on the roof of the house. Even more detail behind that is roughly every 1,000 square foot of roof surface you have, every inch of rainfall out of the sky would translate into roughly 1,000 gallons of water. So that's a lot of water coming off of a roof.
Indeed.
So if your gutters aren't clean, if they're not there, if they're not sloped right, but if they're not clean, if they're not extended away from the foundation, that water is draining next to the foundation, will find a way in through the foundation walls and create damp environment in the basement, which could lead to mold growth, of course, but also it attracts insects.
Right.
They're attracted to the damp environment. What eats those insects are the spiders. So if you want to get rid of spiders, you make sure that your roof water is discharging. You keep the dampness levels down in the basement, and it starts on the exterior. It's not about just getting a sump pump installed or putting in a new water treatment system in the basement. It's about going to the outside, going to the source, not treating the symptom, but going to the source, which is roof water. So what happens a lot of times in the wintertime is these little maintenance things aren't done. Maybe they rake the leaves in the end of October,
right,
but you're still going to get leaves accumulating in November, even in December, depending. And if they're not cleared out and you got water not getting away, it's going to freeze And then once it thaws out in the springtime, then you can have all kinds of mess and issues. So the reality is we're seeing issues, these little issues that could have been prevented by doing general maintenance are showing up as defects now in inspection reports that we're conducting in April and May.
Very nice. So in other words, be mindful of the outside of your property at all times.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't matter what time of the year.
Exactly.
You should make sure that everything is clear around the perimeter of your house.
Yep. Extend those downspouts and make sure gutters are clear, and make sure because some houses have problem with ice damming and freezing of water in those gutters and downspouts. So there's heat cables that are installed. People don't even know that if they're working or not. Because they're not testing them. They may have had them installed 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and they've worked fine every year. But unless you verify that they're working, you don't know. So make sure those guys are working.
And what's the best way to do that?
Well, you rely on it, but you can basically get voltage meters and make sure they're plugged in and test them for voltage, or hire someone who installed it to come out and check on it. But yeah, there's simple tools you could buy at Home Depot, Lowe's that will measure voltage, and once you have it turned on, you could just tap the line to see that there's current flowing through it.
So we take time to actually maintain our vehicles. We should, at least, right? We take time to actually go to the doctor, some of us, and maintain our health.
Yep.
So just like that, you have to take time to maintain your house properly, right? Make sure that everything that keeps that house warm, that everything that keeps that house clear of water, that everything should be checked. At least, what do you recommend? Once, twice a year, right?
Every quarter, every season, there's a little seasonal checklist you can go through. We have one. We do with our inspections. We include a manual how to operate your home, and there's a seasonal checklist inside that book that help out. But yeah, you just want to be mindful. You just want to be plugged into this kind of stuff. And quite honestly, Google is a really good help. I mean, just be mindful of it and just do a little search on Google. If it's springtime, spring maintenance tips. Just so you're cognizant of it. But that's the thing. You're required by law to get your car inspected annually,
right?
Which is a good thing because you're driving a huge, 1,000+ pound object around on public roads, so you want to make sure that it's safe. But at the same point, houses, I mean, we spend a lot of time, obviously, in our homes, and, indoor safety is critical. So people aren't even, they're not even aware that their smoke detectors might be installed improperly or are missing. Let alone they're having health issues in the house. People are constantly battling colds or, respiratory issues, and no one can figure out why. And here it's a mold issue that's going on. They're not, and it's little things like the one downspout in the back corner of the house that's been draining next to the foundation is what's causing this moisture issue in the basement, which is then leading to mold growth in the house. So it's amazing that these little things can feed on each other, but no one is being reminded of it, or they're not being reminded of it regularly enough. And that's why this card kind of stood out as something important. Let's just get a little checklist out there, make it available, just a little incentive for someone just to grab their attention. Oh yeah, maybe I should think about, or execute. I thought about putting that blanket, an extra pair of gloves and water and bag or granola in the car. I just haven't done it yet, and well, here's a little checklist to encourage you to do.
Let's go over that checklist, man. You know what?
Yeah.
So let's talk about winter, right? Because you and I, you more than I, we love the outdoors.
Yeah.
Right? We like doing things, whether it's going out mountain biking. You're an avid skier, right?
No, I don't ski.
Okay.
No, I never got the grasp of it back in the day. But I run on ski slopes, so there we go.
I remember that. Okay, and that's where I was getting that from. But nevertheless, I mean, you love the outdoors, but at the same time, you're really big into health. Right, and fitness, and making sure that you take care of yourself, you take care of your body, and then here, we talk about the same thing, but for your hhome, you're preparing your home for the winter. I've been looking forward for this big snowstorm that we're supposed to get.
Yeah, right.
And I'm looking forward to the day where I'm actually stranded inside the house for a little bit.
Sure.
Or actually, go up to the mountain and maybe do a little skiing. It's been a while since I've done that. So, but winter home preparations 101. You talked about thermostat. Ensure that these are functional and properly. How do you properly set your thermostat?
Well, part of this list was also inspired about people traveling for the holidays.
Okay, all right.
So it was really more of a winter checklist because there's different things you're going to encounter in the winter than you would in the summer. For instance, checking your fireplace before you leave. If you had a fire the night before and you presume it's out and extinguished, but you never know. There could be some lingering hot embers in that fireplace that could spark. Maybe there's some wrapping paper that was stuffed in the fireplace, and that didn't all catch, and but that one hot ember all of a sudden found life, hours later after you left the party, and you left to travel to go visit, some family for the weekend.
Right.
So like those are obviously unique items to winter travel. You wouldn't really necessarily be worried about hot embers in the summertime. But basically people turn the thermostat down too low sometimes. I think, people will turn it off. They have to be careful not to turn the thermostat off. Leave it on, of course, but leave it set around, somewhere in the 58 plus or minus is a good number. Commonly people go 55. I would say not go below 60, 62.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, one of the things with heating a home back up is not only is the home, you're heating the air, but you also have to heat the walls, the carpet, the couches, the furniture. So everything in the house has to get warmed up. So by keeping it that cold, if you're only gone for a week, it's just going to require that much more energy to warm it all back up.
Makes sense.
But at the same point, some of those water lines, depending on how deep of a freeze you get and how well insulated your house is, some water lines run up the exterior of the house. And if your house is set at 55 or 52, somewhere in that range, and it's, 0 outside sustained for a day or two, you never know. And depending on installation, some of those pipes running up the exterior wall could freeze.
So true.
And the reason they could freeze, and again, what's different is the fact the water has stopped moving. No one's brushing their teeth or flushing the toilet or taking a shower. So the water in that line, it's coming out of the earth at roughly 53.5 degrees. But now it's sitting in that pipe on an exterior wall during a polar vortex for 3 or 4 days where it's well below freezing and right around 0 degrees. That could freeze that pipe. So it's a different circumstance. So they keep the house a little bit warmer.
Too, that you're thinking that you're probably saving a little bit of money by putting the heat below 55 or shutting everything off. But the cost that would actually that you're taking on.
Yeah, a little risk. It's a risk reward, like everything in life, honestly. But yeah, just a little bit kind of give you a little buffer zone.
I like that.
Hedge your bet.
I like that. So tell me a little bit more about this winter vacation checklist and maintenance tips.
I think a lot of it, too, was safety, too, with burglaries and stuff like that, just security, making sure, of course, if you have an alarm system that you're setting it, but that you're not leaving things out that would maybe, raise a flag to somebody that somebody's not home. Like if your garbage cans are left out for 3 days, someone might drive by suspecting there's no car in the driveway, or their driveway's not shoveled and their garbage cans are still out in the street and it snowed 3 days ago and garbage was 5 days ago. They may suspect that, nobody's home. That could be an opportunity for somebody.
So maybe talk to one of your neighbors?
Exactly, which is on the list. Inform your neighbors that you're going away. A trusted neighbor. I did want to make sure I put trusted on there, but a trusted neighbor, and just to, give them a heads up that you are leaving. But also, if there's garbage cans that need to be taken, from the curb back to the house, or even taken from the house down to the curb and then back. Making sure you have someone there to shovel the driveway, particularly the walkways. We need to make sure the walkways are safe. A lot of people rely on walking down the sidewalk.
Indeed.
Whether it's just going to the bus stop or just going for a walk with the dog or with the family. If those walkways aren't shoveled, obviously that's a safety hazard for the community. So it's your responsibility to ensure that somebody's looking out after it. So it's just those little details that you're not really thinking about. You're all just worried about, getting the gifts wrapped, loading everyone in the car, what's the weather going to be like, oh my God, who am I going to see on my trip, and where am I going to be sleeping? How is it going to work out? I have so much to do, and, this way you're more focused on just a little bit of an insight into slow it down before you walk out the door, just give this a quick once-over.
So you know what? Now that everybody's going to be going back to school, college, people are traveling. We haven't gotten that big snowstorm yet, but what you have here for auto, I think is such a great tool. And I tell my kid, I have a 20-year-old daughter, right? And I tell her, honey, make sure that you never go below half a tank on your car, right? Because you never know what's going to happen. But here you're saying, top off your fuel.
Yep, exactly.
Right? You're talking about packing extra blankets, jackets, water, snacks. Ensure that very important, ensure that your tires are properly inflated.
Yep.
Right? Those little things. People actually sometimes kind of put at the back of their mind and forget that they're traveling on a tire that might actually be underinflated or overinflated for that.
Personally, probably the most valuable one. Well, they're all very valuable. They're all really important. But, the windshield washer fluid reservoir with the de-icer fluid, that one personally is one of the biggest hindrances, especially if you're doing a long interstate drive.
Right.
My wife is from Western PA.
Okay.
So we do a lot of trips across 80. And, when you have inclement weather, your windshield gets built up with salt.
Right.
And you have to rinse that off with your washer fluid. And depending on the design of the vehicle, the particular vehicle we had, where the lines, the fluid lines for the windshield washer were very close to the hood, and they weren't well insulated, so they were freezing.
Oh no!
So you were driving across the interstate, and you would go to use your windshield washer fluid, and the line was frozen. Regardless of how high you had the defroster on or how long the drive was, the lines were just too close to the hood of the car. And when it's 10 degrees, 15 degrees, those lines froze solid. We had lines that were frozen solid for weeks during one of those polar vortexes.
Ouch.
All because, had I been, mindful enough to add the extra, whatever they call it, the de-icer fluid, that would have remedied that problem. And it's amazing. I mean, think about going 70 miles an hour across the interstate and your windshield's glazed over with salt and you're having trouble seeing and the sun's setting earlier. That's obviously a safety hazard, all because you didn't get reminded to put the de-icer fluid in.
Not just for yourself, but others out there too.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
You definitely have to be mindful of that.
Exactly.
Especially when we do actually finally get the big snowstorm that they've been talking about for a while.
Yeah.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying the weather that we're having. But,
yes. It's good for real estate. So, I'll take the sunshine.
It's good for you.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So you're able to actually get on people's roofs and perform your inspections.
Yes.
Obviously, the best that you possibly can.
Yep.
Where you're not able to do that. And, when there's 4 or 5 inches of snow on top of that roof.
Yep.
So, or around the perimeter of the house, of course.
Yep.
So good stuff, man. So tell me, man, what else? What other recommendations do you have for homeowners, especially at this time of the year, and people who are actually looking to get their home inspections, which I think is probably one of the most important things that you could do for yourself?
Yeah, and I think that's the overall umbrella to a lot of the stuff we've been doing lately. We as an outlet, as far as some of the content we've been providing, is really about education and just reminding people. As we know, I mean, when you take your car in to get inspected, you have to do it. And oftentimes people don't really care exactly what's going on or what's being checked, as long as they know they're looking at the tires, looking at the brakes, looking at washer fluid, making sure the turn signals and brake lights are working. But with the house, you're not required to do it. So little things might be sliding through the cracks. And from the home inspection side of things, we're finding that in most of our reporting and most of the inconvenience of doing an inspection is dealing with discussing, explaining all of the little tiny, arguably inconsequential items that we're finding in a house that could easily be resolved by simple maintenance. And it's essentially because no one ever told them about it. They didn't know that they were supposed to do it. It's amazing how many different things we see that are done wrong. Even in new construction, we see silly things that are done wrong.
Give a small example of that.
Oh man! Well, since we talked about gutters and downspouts,
okay.
if the conventional, what we call splash blocks. So where a downspout discharges down next to a house, ideally you should have an extension pipe on that roughly 6 to 8 feet going away from the house.
Okay.
A rigid, smooth pipe, ideally, not the flexible stuff. But ultimately, they're putting these little concrete, now they have plastic or vinyl versions of these, what we call splash blocks. So the water that comes out of the end of that downspout, instead of just driving down into the dirt and the earth and eroding that soil and creating a cavity for water to drain right along your foundation, these splash blocks absorb that water, absorb the splash, and deaden that blow, and then allow the water to flow out the other end. So the splash block is designed. One end of it is basically 3 sides have like a curb on it,
okay.
And then the 4th side is open to allow the water to flow out
away from
the other
house.
end.
Right.
And I don't want to throw percentages out there, but it's definitely more than 20% of the time on we'll see on newer homes where these splash blocks are actually installed backwards.
Oh.
Again, it's a silly little thing. It's kind of comical, but these splash blocks are backwards, so water is coming out these downspouts hitting these splash blocks, and the water's designed to flow, or the way they're intended is to flow away from the house to the open end. But because it's curbed, there's a lip around three sides of this splash block, the water's just flowing back and actually dumping right next to the house. So it's completely counterintuitive. But again, it's just a small little detail of things that we see. And again, no one thinks anything of it. They'll buy the house new, and they'll live there for 15 years and have that same little splash block in the wrong direction. And meanwhile, they've been dealing with potential some structural issues, some settlement issues, and maybe some spiders in the basement that could have been
And it's just
remedied.
an open invitation for wood-destroying insects in the future. Exactly. So again, it's just about taking care of the little things. And these little checklists, we'll keep putting them out there. And again, one little, life at a time, one little family at a time will hopefully, be better for it. So that's our goal.
Is there a website that you have that people could visit so they could check periodically, as the seasons change, of what they should be doing to maintain their property?
That's actually something pretty valuable. Maybe we should implement that. I would say a lot of these checklists are available through our social media pages.
Okay.
You just go through and they're available as PDFs in our photos section and gallery, so people can download them that way.
I like that.
But yeah, we're just making them available, and we're kind of going grassroots with handing them out, distributing them to the local real estate offices, and then online on our social media sites.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. And, I know this is very impromptu. You just came in and you wanted to distribute these pamphlets, winter vacation checklist, which I am very grateful for. So thank you for the inspiration and putting this podcast out there. Matt Engler, thank you so much for coming here, and we wish you and everybody at Allied Inspections a amazing 2020.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and
Right
thanks for putting this out there.
You're welcome.
Very valuable information.
Appreciate that.
All right, take care, man.
Thank you.
Thanks.